Are you looking for a relaxing, peaceful winter painting session? Then today's video is for you. Welcome to Sunlit Brushstrokes. My name is Jessica, and today we'll be painting this soft winter rose in watercolor, surrounded by gentle greenery and winter berries. I'll also be sharing a short, inspiring Christmas message near the end of this video. If you'd like to paint along, you can find the outline for this flower in my Etsy shop. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and start by just tracing this flower onto a piece of watercolor paper. I'm using graphite paper, that's my preferred way to transfer, but you could definitely use a light box or whatever tracing method you prefer. Now I'm working with the 5x7 size coloring page or outline here, but I will also provide one that's an 8x10. If you want this to be like a piece of wall art, or if you want to work a little bit larger, it might be easier. The smaller you go, the less detail you're gonna need to put in here. Now, because this is a coloring page, I had a lot of detail on here that we do not need for using just as a painting outline. And so I'm just tracing the basic shapes here. I'm not doing every little crease and fold. And every now and then I could add a few if I want to use them as a guideline, but you definitely don't want to trace all of them. That will take a long time. So I'm just simplifying as I trace the basic shapes of these petals. Same thing with the center here. I'm just going to do the main circle, and then I'm just going to kind of do the outline of all these little stamen. Again, I want to keep it really nice and simple for this project. And you'll notice I'm using a blue colored pencil to do this. That helps me see where I'm going so that I don't get lost. If I just used a regular graphite pencil, it would sometimes be hard to make sure I've traced everything on here. And I'm going very loose and simple for the outline of these little cedar or juniper. Now I went ahead and waited and traced my letters at the end and added it, but I will say that I think the most challenging part of this project is actually the lettering with paint, especially because some of these letters were so tiny. And so you might want to go ahead and do your lettering, trace it at the beginning and paint it on first, but I did mine at the end. So if you want to go to the timestamp where I painted it, you can watch me paint it and decide whether you want to do yours first or at the end, or if you want to put a different message, whatever you'd like, it's up to you. So I'm just going to go ahead and lift my transfer, make sure everything worked. If you have any areas that the outline went a little bit too light, you can even just go ahead and use a pencil and kind of just lightly sketch that back in. Or if you have areas that you might have missed. I'm not being super precise with this, but I just want to make sure that I kind of have the basic general idea, and then I also can just kind of refer back to my outline or my coloring page as I actually go to paint. I know this part looks really hilarious right now, but it's going to be okay. I'll show you how I handle it when I get there. And if you're like me and you've got smudges, I like using a kneadable eraser or a kneaded eraser to just lift the extra smudges out. And you can also, if you want to at this point, add a few of these little lines. But for the most part, I think I'm going to just do that with my paint. So I'm just going to look at this as a guideline, and then I will do the details with paint at the end. So I want to start out with some slight yellow undertones to this. So I'm going to just paint the whole flower with a little bit of water first, so I can do a little bit of wet on wet. And this is where, yes, you don't want to have extreme outlines here, because anything that you put water on is going to become permanent. So I'll just go ahead and put my water on. And then I want to have a gold color. Now I have my yellow here. This is my Hensa Yellow Deep, but you can see it's a little muddy because I was messing around with some other colors in here. So you can see when I reconstitute it, it's a little bit kind of a greeny color. So I'll just take any of my red colors here that I have. This is my quinacridone rose. And then these other colors are just mixtures using quinacridone rose and my yellow and my phthalo blue. If you've watched my channel for any length of time, you know I basically just use those three colors. So anything in my palette will just be a mixture of those most of the time. So you can see by adding a little bit of that reddish color here, I've got a bit of a gold. And I'm going to drop it in first, kind of in the center here, a little bit coming outwards. And then I'm just going to let it kind of create just this golden undertone in a few areas. So I'm going to just drop it in a few more spots. Not too many. I don't want to overdo the gold color to start with. I'll use a little water now and just blend it around. especially these ones here. I don't want them to be like, as you can see, overpowering. I just want to have a little bit of a golden undertone here. And I'm using smaller brushes right now. Both of these are number 6. This is a Simply Simmons, and I have a Artegria round 6 as well. Okay, I think that's all I want for my gold colors. I just wanted a little bit of a warm undertone to everything. And you can see in some of these areas that are folded over, I'm going to be getting more like a bluey shadow color, so I don't want to overdo it yet with my yellows. So I'll just do something like that. And since the berries aren't attached to the rest of the flower, I might come in and do a little bit of the berries. So let's go ahead and start into these berries. And I have kind of this kind of burgundy color here. I'll just show you what that looks like on a scrap of paper. It's very dark. I don't want to go quite this dark, I don't think, in my painting, but that's kind of the idea of what I have here for a burgundy. So I'm going to come in here and just fill in the berries. So what I think I'll do is I'll put a little bit of water on them first, and then I will come in and just drop some of that in. And I'm not worrying about highlights for this because it's really small, but if you want to add highlights, you would definitely want to, you could either mask the highlights. I'm gonna add an extra berry here. You could mask your highlights or just work around them, but I'm not gonna worry about it because they're so small. And I'm gonna put kind of like a C-shape curve to each of them. So kind of like the lower left side of each of these berries. So it's pretty faint. I think I'm liking that. So I'm going to come in and just do just a little bit more, get these a little darker. They're kind of going a little bit of a pinky color, which I don't mind. I might even try using a number 3 Artegria round because I feel like even the 6 is a little big for water control or just having ease of painting these. So I'm going to come a little smaller. And I'm dry enough that I think I can wrap around and come all the way around the berry. So I'm just doing these kind of carefully. And then I'll use my number 6 again here. I'm going to dab off the excess water and I'm going to see if I can blend it so I've got a little bit of a lighter area. So I kind of have like an intermediate, kind of a pinky reddish color as well. So I'm just using the water and just kind of blending that around. So I have I actually ended up with a highlight because it was not as wet as I expected or because I worked slow enough. But we got a little bit of lighter, a little bit of a highlight, and then I'm going a little bit lighter. I'm just lifting and tapping on my paper towel so I get kind of that in-between red, and then if I want to put a little bit more dark, I'll just do it at the very, very far lower left side. So I'm just kind of playing around with these berries till I get them kind of to the point I'm happy with. I think I'm happier with that. And I might even just take a touch of this yellow. You can mix this in another palette if you want. I'm just taking a little bit over here and making myself kind of a brownish gold color. I might even take a tiny tap of blue to get this a little bit more on the brown side. And then I'll just do these little branches here quick. And I might get some color bleeds depending on how wet things are, but yeah, I'm okay with that. So then I'm gonna come over here and repeat what I just did for these berries. So you can see they're still wet. I've got quite a lot of shine there still. So I'm just gonna come in, back over to the burgundy color, and I'll tap that in on the far left side again. Okay, these are really wet. I'm gonna get some control here with a smaller brush. Just kind of all mushing together. And that's okay. Use a small brush. Create more of an outline. Okay, they're really mushing together here. I don't mind that. I'll just let them be that way, and they're so small that I'm gonna just tap in some of the darker color over here now. So you can see sometimes they get different effects depending on how much water I have here. But I want to keep it more or less simple. I'm gonna let them dry a little bit, and then I'll be able to come in and get a little bit more control right now everything's kind of just softened and almost too extreme compared to this. So that's okay. I'm gonna let them be for a minute and then I can add a little more detail later. You know what I might even do is I might go ahead and put a little bit of a yellow undertone into some of the leaves and the greenery. So I'm just gonna go ahead with my number 6 and just drop some water in a few of these spots. So just on the bigger leaves, maybe a little bit into the cedar area here or the juniper. Just gonna drop water in a few places. And then I can tap a little bit of the yellow undertones in there as well, just so we have harmony. And then I'll come back over everything afterwards with some darker, greener colors. Could have done this back when I did this, but that's okay. I'm just gonna do it now. And I don't want too much, so I'll just put a little bit on some of these bigger leaves. These are gonna be more green, so they can have a little bit more yellow. And then these other leaves and greenery, I think they're gonna lean a little more into the bluish green side, so I don't want quite as much right now. I'm just gonna use some water and just tap it around a little bit. Again, I'm just using this number 6 the whole time. It's just gonna give me some nice harmonized undertones to everything. And then I'll let everything dry before I add any other paint. I might put a little more water in these areas that seem kind of a little more intense with the yellow. I don't want to go too intense. Yeah, I think I'm okay with that. So if you have any areas that you get hard edges here because the flower's drying, you can just use a little water, soften things a little bit with the water. But otherwise, I think I'm going to go ahead and let everything dry, and then I'll be back. All right, so now that this is dry, I think I want to add a little more to the flower, get it a little bit further along, and then all the rest of this foliage and everything is going to be really easy. So let's get this part done first. And I'm going to work a little bit piecemeal now and use a couple of shadow colors. So I have my red burgundy colors here. So this is the one that I used for the berries. I can show you what else I have here. It's kind of a darker burgundy, same sort of idea. I might use a bit of those in the shadow colors, but even more than that, I have this color here that's kind of a blue, almost like an indigo blue color. I'll show you what it looks like on here. And this is the color I'm going to definitely use as a shadow color on my flower. So I'm going to be kind of building up just kind of dull neutral colors, but using almost like the primaries, right? So I'm using yellow, and then I'll use one of these reds, and then I'll use the blue. And in that way, I'll actually have all 3 primaries kind of working within this flower, but they're very neutral and very toned down for winter. So I'm going to go ahead first, and like I say, we'll be doing a little piecemeal now. So I'll work on one piece at a time. Probably mostly use my number 6 round brush and my number 3, just because they're small. If you have smaller brushes as well that are even smaller than this, you can use them. So what I'm going to do is put some water in this section here, maybe even then in the one beside it. And then I'm just going to drop a little bit of this dark color kind of along the base, closest to where it's like the center of the flower. So kind of like this. Just going to come along the edge here like so, and then I'll use this number 6 to kind of guide it around. I'm almost too dry. This is almost drier than I would like to be. That's okay. Let's just get some water in there and get it moving. It's a little bit better. And then what I'm going to do is actually create a little bit of like the creases and folds in some places. You can see I did that a little bit here. I want to do a little bit more of that. So I'm using my number 3 again, just to create some of those lines. You want the paper to not be so wet that everything just mushes around, but if it's too dry, you'll get what I have here, right? And I didn't get any blending at all. So you kind of want a damp stage. I think that's working better. I like that. And then I might drop a tiny bit of the kind of pinky color in here as well, or that burgundy color. So I'll just drop a little tiny bit. That's a lot. I don't want too much of it. I just want a little bit of color harmony and a little bit of that pinky color just in a few spots. I think it looks pretty. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing on a section over here. So let's go over in this section and just do this. And maybe skip a shape and do this one too. So I've put water in both of those shapes. They're a little hard to see. Some of my lines are getting a bit light. Now I haven't even washed my brush. I've got a blend now of the blue and the red in here. So I'm just gonna drop some along there and a little bit along here. And I'll use the 6 and guide it around to see if I can get some of those, the impression of kind of the creases and folds. We'll see how that works. I'm gonna come up here a little bit too. It's kind of a funny stage of wetness, so I'm not sure if I'm loving this as much, but that's okay. I'm gonna just tap my brush off a bit this time and just come in with just the blue instead of having the red and the blue. Just get a little bit of these creases and folds happening over here. You can look at your reference photo here as well to kind of figure out where those can kind of land if you don't have any drawn on here. As you can see, again, this small brush isn't holding too much water, and that's helping me get the control here. That's how I'm maintaining some of these little creases and folds. So just do a few of them, like so. And if you get too dark, you can always just lift a little bit out with your brush. And I actually don't mind how this is looking down here. Just maybe put a tiny bit of that blue color, not too much. Yeah, I think I like that. Now, everything needs to dry because if I kind of come into these shapes, they'll bleed. And so what I'm gonna do is, I think I'm gonna actually just pencil in a couple more berries in here because I feel like it almost needs like, you know, like 3 groups of berries here. So I'm just gonna take some artistic license and do that really quick. Maybe something like that. And I'm just going to repeat what I did before. And I'm just working with this one burgundy, the same one. That's all I've used so far. I think I'll just skip that one probably. I'm happy with this one. So do those 4 and this one here. Maybe should have lifted a little more pencil, but that's okay. At least we're going really dark here with the reds, or darker. It's not the lightest part of the painting. So I'm just picking up some of the burgundy color and again, putting it on the farthest left side. Do that a little bit here and here. And then I will let that just dry for a quick little minute. And then I can come around and do the whole outside of it. And again, this is a nice small brush. You definitely want to have a small brush for this if you're working as small as me. And making that little lopsided looking, that's okay. Drop a little more dark at the far left side. And then while I'm at it, I might just do, I actually kind of like how those blended together for the most part, but I'm going to put just a little bit of the darker color. Again, far left side, I'm working wet on dry now, just so I have a little bit more definition to these berries. And I'll see if I want to add any more water or not, but I just feel like they were a little bit, they're pretty, but could have had a little bit more definition. So just dropping that in to define them a little bit more. I think I like that. Okay. Maybe a little tiny touch of water in these ones because they're looking like the highlights are a bit big. Yeah, maybe just a tiny touch more of this red. Again, just so that it's darker on the left. And I think this is dry enough now. I can come in. It took a little minute and I think I'll be okay. So what I want to think about as I'm shading this, I should mention, is I'm wanting to think of my light source is over here. So it's coming down. So the light's going to actually hit the way these are curved here. It's going to be a little lighter, and then we're going to have dark where these petals are kind of folded over. And so this isn't going to be too dark here. We're going to have light here because the light's hitting it from above, and then it's going to be dark in here. So I'll show you as I go what I'm doing. So I'll just wet this shape here, and I'm just going to come in with my bluey color and just do a few of these little lines. Make it darker kind of around the stamen because they're going to be casting a shadow. And you can see I'm almost too wet, so things are bleeding around, so just guide that with a damp brush. This is my 6, but any size small brush would work. There, I'm happier with that. And then I'll come in here and I'll go a little darker here. I'll just use my 6 since it's here. Put a little bit of that color in here. And then because there's so much yellow, I think I'm going to put a little bit of the reddish color, so it makes it a little bit less, it's not going to look as green, because too much of the bluey color and the yellow together will make kind of a greenish tone. So let's put a little bit more red in there. I think I like that. I'll just tap a little bit more of those shadow colors. A little more red, a little more blue. Because again, the stamen are going to cast a shadow under there. Just wash and dry my brush and just tap a little bit of water. I don't have a lot of creases and folds in that area, as you can see. It's just a dark shadow. So let's come over here and do this. And let's see, I think I have some of the blue on here. Don't want to be too wet. And I'm just going to have it kind of come, again, these creases and folds kind of coming. Again, you can look at your outline, the drawing outline, and see these come down like this. I'm almost too dry, as you can see. Need a little more water. Surprised actually that didn't blend a little bit more, seeing I had wet it. But this is working okay. Let's put a little bit of the reddish color in there too. Maybe come along the top a little bit, define this a little bit. And then drag it down. Okay, almost too much pink now. You can see I'm just kind of blending it out with my water brush because I feel like things didn't really get as soft as I wanted them. So I'm just kind of almost scrubbing with this brush a little bit, and then I'll drop a little more blue because, like I say, I feel like it just didn't quite get as soft as I would have liked it to be. Try again. And I want most of the lines to be kind of along the top here because this is curling over, that top piece is curling over, and it's going to cast a shadow. Ooh, let's go this direction so we don't get the little stars. I'll just gently blend. I'm happier with that. It's kind of a little messy, but better. And then this shape back here, all I want to really do is help it to look defined or like it's behind the shape in front. So to do that, I'm just going to drop the color. And again, you can even look at this, right? And see where these little creases and folds could go. Just drop color kind of coming downwards to where the edges of the petals are meeting. So the back one is getting a little darker than the front one. So by putting that dark along there, it's making this one pop a little bit, right? And be careful because there's an area that's folded over here. We don't want to paint that. So just come in here. And again, pull, whoop, again, a little bit too dark. Drag that downwards, like so. Actually kind of joins along here. Just drop a little bit more water in here. Again, I really want the darkness, not really as much at the top like I have there. Most of it, I'm really wanting to have it kind of along this lower edge to help it look like it's behind this one. Top edge doesn't matter if it's light or dark, but it doesn't really need to be dark. So I could lift a little bit, just not, you know, not necessary, but if we wanted to keep the flower as white as possible when we don't have to go dark. Okay, this little piece here, I'm going to do it as well. Same idea. It actually might even be part of this petal here, but that's okay. We're going to just go ahead and same thing, darker along this lower edge here. Be careful, get a little more water and some of my shadow color. Just drop it, kind of tap along the bottom here, and then just drag a little bit here to get the creases and the folds. The hardest part of this painting is the flower. Once you get the flower done, then all the rest is going to be really easy because I'm going to do it fairly loose. So this part here is the most challenging. But you can see it's starting to shape up because we're getting those darks kind of at the lower lower parts of the flower, closest to the center. I'm gonna even do a few little extra lines here. It's kind of mostly dry, but feels like it could have a little something. Yeah, I think I'm happy with that. Just soften it a tiny touch with water. Okay, let's do these outside folds. They can be definitely darker because they're the furthest from the light. So I'll put a little water in here and here, and then come in with this dark color, and I'll probably add a little bit of red in here too. So just come in here for now. You can see this is starting to make it look like these are folded over, right, by coming a bit darker. Just going to put a little hint of blue everywhere, and then I'll come over it with a little bit more of the reddish color. I'm going to drop a little bit of water in here, make it softer. Just going to let that sit for a quick minute before I drop more of the reds in it. Maybe a little bit of the red and a little bit of the blue together. Let's see. Something like that. Just gently blend it around a little bit with my water brush. I'm just going to tap my brush. It's got quite a lot of blue, but I want to put a little bit more of the blue in here. I think I like that for the shadows in this darkest area down here. I'm losing some of my detail, but that's okay. I can always come back in and add a little bit more of those little creases and folds if need be. So I am happy with that. I like how dark that is. This section here, I want to get darker too. It feels like it's a little damp still, so I'll wait. And I might do this section here. It doesn't need to be quite as dark, but same sort of idea. So I'll put a little water, but you could probably even do this wet on dry, as long as you have enough water on your brush, like you're not super dark. But let's go along here. Actually, it could be lighter as it kind of wraps around here, so I might just use my water and just lift a little bit of that bluey color out so we have a lighter color over here. Kind of like that. And then let it get dark as it kind of comes further away from the light. Drop a little red and then a little more of the blue. And now I think everything needs to dry, so I'm going to come back in and do a few more things. So maybe I'll do some of these teardrop leaves. And I'm thinking to do them a little bit of a kind of a bluey gray color. So let's see what I have in my palette that might work. This is really teal. I don't think I want it quite as teal as that. I'm just going to grab the corner of this palette here, and I'll put a little bit of that color in here. So I like that color, but I think I want it just a little bit more on the bluey side. So I'm going to mix those two colors together so that I kind of have like a bluey green. I'll show you what this looks like on a scrap of paper here quick. Something like that. We'll see how this looks. I might even want to add a little bit more of the purpley color to it, but we'll see. I'll just drop some water. I've actually got, you can see it's not pure water on my brush. It's water plus a little bit of that paint mixture. I'm going to come in and fill in these little teardrops, and then I'll drop in more of that color out of here. So just pick it up with my brush and maybe do the outside of each of these. So just do the stem or the little stems, and then I will come in and do the outside of these as well. So have a little bit of variety in our greens. And I'll just drop a little water in any areas that feel like they're a little bit, I don't know, mushy or needing a little bit of variety in there. Just put a little bit of that. I might even drop a little bit of the same color that I've used in the flower Might even, like I say, put a little bit more of that purple color in here in a few spots. And then I'll probably have to add a little water to get it to blend because it's kind of getting a little bit dry. I like the variety, having more than just one solid greenish color in there. So just use the water, encourage it to move just a little bit. And then I'm going to call that good for these little teardrop shapes. So a little water. Okay, there's a few in a few other spots, so let's just do that quick. Use my water on my brush and just come in here. And yes, I'm saying water on my brush, but as you can tell, my brush isn't perfectly clean and I don't mind that. Actually seeing there's a teardrop shape kind of behind here as well. So I didn't quite trace that on there, but I'll just draw it on with my paintbrush. And then I'll drop more of that color into these. I think I need a smaller brush. And then I'll drop a little bit of the purpley color along with that teal color. And then I'll just put a little more water to encourage it to move around. Actually, it even looks okay like that. I might just let it be. All right, I want to see what I have in my palette. I might have a good enough green already for these bigger leaves, but let's just test this on paper. I think I've got probably 2 greens that might work, but there's a darker green. And this one is an olivey green. Let's see. Oh, okay. The purple has risen to the top on this one. Let's try that again. Let's add some water. I know that's not a purple color. But certain pigments are lighter than others, and so obviously they rose to the top. I think I'm happier with that green, so I'll add a little more water to my palette. I like that color, so. Oh shoot. And I just splattered my painting. Just quickly clean that up with some clear water. Just rub that on there and tap that off. It's mostly off. I can always add a few little bits of greenery back there if I need to. All right, so then let's go ahead and paint these leaves in. So I'm just adding some water and I'm reconstituting this paint a little bit. Okay, and I can always come back in and add any variety of other greens too if I want to. And then I'm just adding a little bit of water to my leaf. It's kind of tinted water as you can see, but then I'm going to use my green, and this is actually a slightly larger brush. This is a number 6 Artegria round. And I'm going to do the outline of the flower, or not the flower, the leaf, and just create this leaf shape. And then I can kind of come in and add some details after. So I'm just putting it along the outside edge of this. And then I'm going to just let it blend around. So we'll use a little bit of water on another brush and just encourage the paint to move around. And so we have a little bit of variety. I don't want to have it to be like a solid green if I can help it. So just drop the water in. I do like the little bit of a yellow glow from below that we got on there already. I might even come in with a little bit of this teal color. Let's see what we think about it. Do you like that? Dropping just a little bit more color because I want some variety in my greens. Just add a little water to that. And I can come in and add some detail after. Let's put a little water in this leaf here. Just got my paper towel here so I can blot out any excess water. I don't want to be too wet. And I'll come back in and I'll drop in some of this, again, a little bit more olivey green. It's kind of just a nice Christmas green, really. But, okay, I'm very concentrated. Let's tap that excess paint off. That's because my paint had dried on my palette, so that's why it's so concentrated. Again, I'll just tap a little bit of water into it, soak a little bit of the excess color out, and then I'll come in. I might even put, this time, I might even put a little bit of this purpley color that I've been using on the flower. I might put a little bit into this far edge of the leaf because it kind of will create a little bit of color harmony, and I like that color. I think it's pretty. So I'll just drop a little bit of that in. You can add other greens or other colors, even blues, teals, even browns or reds if you want to get a little more variety in your greens. If you're enjoying today's video, I'd love to invite you to join my free newsletter, where you could be the first to know about more videos like this, along with new classes and tutorials. I share helpful art tips to inspire you on your creative journey. I'll include a link for that in the description below. Now let's get back to painting. Do the same thing here. So I'll just put a little bit of water into the leaf. Now I'm not going to wash my brush. I'm going to let whatever's on here. So it's going to have a little bit of that purpley color, a little bit of the green. Let's see what we get. No, it's mainly green. Just do the outline of the flower, or of the leaf. I keep calling it the flower. I'm not sure why. Brain is not with it quite. Okay, I'm going to do the little veins this time because I'm a little bit drier. And then I'll tap some water in there and move it around. I'm going to go with a little bit of the darker, kind of more Christmassy green in here as well. Just put a little bit more on the outside before I start tapping in the water. So you can see there's multiple ways you could do leaves. You don't have to stick with one way. Just dropping in the water. Because I don't want to have like stripes, right? We want to have the veins sort of show, but not overpoweringly so. I'm going to drop a little bit more, whatever I've got on my brush. I want to get a bit darker in here. I guess I kind of went into the area where I want to put the juniper, but that's okay. Let's see what color I can get. I want to go darker where we're touching the flowers, so tap a little bit more of that color in, tap a little bit more along the bottom. Maybe do those leaves a little bit more, or the veins. I'm dry enough that the veins are showing up okay. That's the secret, is you want it to not be super wet or the veins won't really stay put. So dry enough that they're blending, but they're not overpowering. I'm going to drop a little more water. Just don't want those to be, I still feel like I need a little more darkness in here. I don't like quite how light I am. So just dropping the water so we get a little more flow. Okay, I'm gonna come in here and fix that little mess up later. Let's just see. Oh yeah, I'm very light right now. That's okay. Let's just put this color on here, and then we can come back in and put a little bit of something else to get it darker. As you can see, there's lots of different ways you can paint a leaf. Okay, let's go like so, and then tap in some of our darker green again. This is the one we've been using all along. Let's tap that color, tap some water, let it do whatever it wants to do. They look a little funny right now, but once we get all that juniper in here to kind of fill in the gaps, I think it'll be fine. I put a little bit more of the teal color as well. Tap it off. Let's try this for the veins. No, it's too wet to really do veins right now. That's okay. It's got a little bit of color variation, so I'll just let that be. And there's one more leaf, tiny leaf here. I'm gonna just turn my paper and paint it quickly. So I've kind of got a bit of water on my brush, or I should say watery paint. So just fill in the leaf and then we'll come in with a darker color right afterwards. Yeah, I think I like that. I might just drop a little bit of this purpley color again, the one that we're using on the flower. A little bit of harmony here. So it's kind of our shadow color. I think I like that. All right, so I'm gonna let everything dry and then I'll come and finish up the flower and then we'll do the juniper. All right, so I'm coming back in and I'm going to do the remaining shapes on this flower. I think I'm going to do these two shapes first. Actually, you know what? Let's just do this one. I know I got some water on the other one. That's okay. I'm going to do this one so it can start to dry because I still need to come down here. So I'm just going to put the water on there. I think I'm kind of on the dry side. Let's see how things go. Take a little bit of my blue. And I want to just do some of these little creases and folds like this. Yeah, I'm quite dry. So I'm going to come in with some water. Just move those around a little bit. This is actually, this fold here can be quite a bit darker as well because it's, especially as it comes towards the left, because it's wrapping around a little bit. So just put a little more water in here, a little more paint. I'll let it get a little lighter as I come over here. I know I definitely need a little more of the pinky color as well. Just drop a little bit more dark. And maybe a little bit of the red. I think I'm liking this. Just put a little more water. I'm going to tap it in here. Get it to blend around a little bit. Something like that. Yeah, I think I kind of like that. And just put a little bit more of the blue. I don't know, playing with this one a little bit more. Is that okay? I think I like that. It's getting almost too dark, but this is the darker side, so we'll just let it be. And then maybe I'll put just a very, very, very slight amount of dark up here, very, very little, because this is the lighter side, but as it curves to the edge like this, it could get a little bit more of a shadow color. So I'm quite diluted. And just put a little bit of water there. And then there's a tiny little shape here, but that's touching this one, so I might just wait and do that after. Feels like those ones actually could wait. So since everything, I kind of think I want to let it dry before I come any further, I might do the cedar and the juniper. Just put a tiny, tiny tap more here, just so we can at least see it. Okay, I'm gonna do a little experimenting with my juniper. I'm thinking I'm gonna have several colors on the go. What I wanna do is have maybe like a bit of a bluey color, a little bit of a olive green color. I wanna bring all the colors sort of together. So I'll just take a little bit of this burgundy still, make this one a little bit more kind of a purpley blue. I think something like that. Yeah, I kind of like that. I think the gray, and then I'll take a little bit of this green as well. I'm going to make it a little bit more on the olivey side. So I'll take a little bit of this brownish color that I had going earlier from my palette, and probably a little more red. I'm wanting something that's a little more neutral and dull. So we'll see what we get here. That's quite brown, so I'm going to come in with a little bit more green. I'm thinking I want to be kind of watery too for this. And then I can come in with these other greens, so I might use a little bit of this. We'll see. Let's try this. I'm going to do a little bit different technique now for this here. So let's just do this tiny little shape first so you can practice. You can always practice on a scrap of paper as well. So I'm going to tap some water into the shape, and then I'm going to come in with this color here, and I'm just going to tap a little bit. I want to be fairly watery, so this is kind of matching the flower right now, but I'm going to be coming in with some of those other colors. So put that in first, wash and dry my brush. We'll come in and tap a little bit of this kind of olivey green. I want to make sure that I'm smooth along the edges of the petals here, so to be careful. Kind of slopping a little bit there, aren't I? Okay, add a little more water and I'll just tap. I want this to be kind of a softer color, I think, for these. So just tap a little bit, and then when I come closer to the flower, I will put a little bit more of the darker green too. I'll just tap a little bit, just kind of doing this little jiggling motion so that I get a really nice soft kind of branchy little bit of juniper. And then actually I'll bring this over and just set it here, and I'm going to pick a little bit of that darker green and just tap just a little bit of it closer to the flower. Just like so. I think I like that. Okay, might even tap a little bit of it back here where I got a little bit of that mess. You can barely see it, but since I made a mess there, why not? So tap a little bit of watery, kind of that watery purple color in there, and then a little bit of, I guess, that olive green again. Tap a little bit. I actually really like the combination of just the olive green and that kind of bluey color. Let's put a little bit of that over here now. So put a little water in here first, just a little bit, not too much. A little bit of tapping, then we'll tap in this kind of purpley color. This is kind of fun. I'm enjoying this part. My page is definitely curling. And this is where we can get a little darker when we come up beside the leaves, so that we get a little bit of harmony and the leaves don't stick out as bad. So this is where I'm taking artistic license pretty much and just tapping whatever feels like it works right now. So changing the shape ever so slightly from what it would have been in the original outline. We're getting pretty dark here. Add a little water to keep things from getting too dark. Like I say, you can always change the shape by just tapping a little bit further out of the lines. And then if you want, you can always come in with that slightly darker green, especially kind of close to the leaves, and that way they kind of blends in a little bit, like so. So I might speed the camera up as I work on some of these, because I think it's pretty much repetitive and self-explanatory at this point. You could even just tap a really watery mixture of your bluey color. You wouldn't even have to come in first with water. You could just add a little bit of water to your purpley blue color and then tap. It's also a good time to be able to define the outside edges of your little petals if you want to, using this darker color. I made sure I dried that side of my painting before I came back over here. And sometimes I'm working a little bit wet on wet, a little bit wet on dry, but I'm really liking this really mottled look that we're able to achieve by just tapping these colors in here. I'm gonna actually come a little bit outwards even and take a little artistic license and fill in this area here because it feels like it needs a little something. It's first watery blue and then the green, the olivey green I should say, and then finally the darker green. Sometimes I just use water to kind of blend if I'm not quite happy with things. And I think I might even use a tiny bit of this one of these darker greens and do a few veins on these leaves. Using the smallest brush once again, my number 3. I'm not even following my reference exactly, I'm just kind of lightly drawing these on here with my paintbrush. And then I'll let it dry before I come in and do the last details on the flower. Okay, so we're gonna do those final little touches. So move this out of the way. Things are pretty much dry now. And I'll just do this little piece. Probably could do, let's do one at a time quick. Again, this one is kind of to the far left, and so we'll go a little darker with it. Tap a little water. And maybe a little bit of this pinky color again. And then I've got a couple shapes here, so I might do this one. We'll do the small, kind of the inside shape first. Go a little bit darker, just to kind of show that it's kind of in there. We'll tap a little of red in there as well. And then I'll do this one down here. I've got a mixture on my brush right now, but I'll just make them kind of just fold or bend, kind of the creases and folds kind of along like this. It's almost too wet. It's drying a bit now. Just guide that around a bit. I'm going to go a little bit darker under here. Just lift a little bit on this side so we get a little bit more light. And just tap a little bit more along the bottom edge here. Maybe a little bit under here and here. And I'll just guide that with my number 6, a little bit of a firmer brush. Try and guide it downwards. And then I'll tap a little bit of the reddish color in as well. Just a little bit like so. And just a little bit. I want it to be kind of just damp enough that I get a little bit of movement and flow here. If it's too wet, we won't get any details, and if it's too dry, we'll get too many details. So let's just lift a little bit more right here. And then I'm going to let that dry just for a minute because I want to have a little more details show, and I feel it's actually working okay now. I felt like it was a little too wet, but let's see. Just add a few little lines, creases, folds. I think I'm happier with that. We'll just soften a little bit right here because it's almost looking a little too stark. Just soften ever so slightly. Yeah, I think I'm happy with that. And then while I wait for this last little piece to dry, I might actually come in and do just this tiny little shape here that I wasn't really even paying attention to, but I'm just going to do a little bit of a, like it's curved over a little bit. Maybe let's go a little bit wetter, less dark. Just get that shape there. Make it look like it's curled over a little bit. I might even accentuate this one just a little bit on this side again. Tap a little bit, just gently blend it with a little bit of water. And I'll just do a little bit of that kind of under here, just to accentuate the shadow just a little bit. And I'm working dry right now, but I'll probably blend it a little bit with my damp brush. Now, I think this is dry enough that I might be able to just come in here and do this last little piece here. If you need to let it dry for a minute, you can. I'm just going to add just a little bit of a shadow here, a little bit of darkness right along the edge here, and then a little bit of water, and just blend that out. I think I need just a little bit more. Just like that. And then I'll switch over to my dark color again. So this is that brownish color I made at the beginning. I'm going to tap a little bit into the center of this, kind of like a C shape, kind of create that rounded look to the center of this flower. So kind of crescent shape a little bit, leaving a little bit of a highlight area about there in the upper right. And then I'm gonna just be doing a lot of tapping all the way around it to make the center of this flower. So I'm gonna do the same thing, add a little more water to this because it's getting dried out. I'm gonna start with this and I'm gonna just tap, tap, and tap all the way around. And then I'll come in with a slightly darker color in a minute. Kind of like so. Then I'm going to take a little bit more of the color I've got on this edge here of my red, so it's going to be a darker brown now. I can even take a little bit, let's just take it over here. Just move this out of the way for a minute. That can dry for a second so that we get a little more definition. So I'm going to take a little bit of this red color, bring it over here, and because I kind of have like a little bit of a kind of an ugly greenish color here, I might be okay. Let's just take a little bit of that shadow color. Oh yeah, we're getting way too green. Basically, I'm just mixing these colors till I kind of get like a brownish color that's a bit darker than what I have here. Let's just see what this actually looks like before we put it on our painting. Yeah, I think it's okay. I'm going to add a little water to it, but otherwise it's okay. I think so. Just add a little water to that. And then once again, I'm going to do the same thing. Tap, so I would definitely want more dark kind of around that far left edge. Starts to continue to define the center of the flower. And then I'm going to start kind of coming around and not putting this quite everywhere. We want it definitely the far side, the far left, because that's where our shadow is. Just take a little more red. I think I'm a little bit getting a little greeny here. Just to tap. And you can come outside the line a little bit. Just with the odd little stamen. Put a little bit over here. I don't want to overdo now. We're really dark. I'm going to want some kind of in-between color, I think, because this is like my darkest darks. So I'm going to put a little bit along here that's going to define that front petal. So it can be nice and dark in there. Nice and dark along the outside here of this little stigma. Around the little center. And then just kind of tap. My brush is actually kind of getting less on it as I continue doing this, so it's working okay, especially if I tap my brush off a little bit on my paper towel. I'm not as dark, so that's okay. I'm okay with the color I've got going here right now. So it's kind of giving me like an in-between, so I'm not quite as harsh and stark with my color. I'm going to go a little darker down here. Maybe even a bit darker still, with a little more red. Just a touch. Okay, I think I'm getting a little dark on this side, so what I'm going to do is just lift a little bit. So I'm just going to tap a little bit. So I'm kind of just scrubbing with this brush and lifting a little bit of that color out. And I'll just tap it with my paper towel. I feel like I'm getting a little too dark over here. So just scrub a little bit. Tap in a few spots. Ooh, okay, that took up more than I needed. That's okay. We'll work it. So I'm just going to blend this in a little bit more on this side. And I'll just come in at the very end and just define a little bit more on this side where I've lifted a bit much out. I might even put a little bit, while this is wet, a little bit of this same shadow color that I've been using, my dark shadow, and create a few little shadows from the stamen, because often the shadows, or the little stamen, create shadows on this side of the flower. So just tap a little bit of that color in there, get a little darker, get the impression of there being shadows from the stamen being cast. This is almost a little too dark right here. Just tap it out a little bit with a little extra water. I feel like I've gone a little bit too dark. Just blend that a little bit. I'm gonna put a little bit of red because it's kind of turning a little bit greeny. I'll come back in here and get some of this reddish kind of brown color again. I'll bring it over here. Just tap a tiny little bit over here. Don't want to overdo it. And a little bit, I think. And a little bit more over here. Just lift a little bit there. You can see I'm struggling. Okay. And then finally, very end, I'll take a tiny bit of this color here. It's turning green because of my colors on my brush. Just putting a very, 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 very small amount at the far shadow side. Not much at all. Mix it. If we want to mix it around, or if we want to blend it a bit, I would take a little bit of red to help it blend because get a little bit more in the purple range. Don't want to be overboard with that blue. And why don't we maybe just add a little tiny touch of paint to this one just to kind of blend it a little bit, or even just knock down the contrast with those. Let's put a little bit of that same green we used before, just a little bit. Tap it in there, and some water. We'll see if we want to put those little veins on there again, or just let it kind of be just a little more gentle looking. Yeah, might leave it like so. We'll see. Let's also just take a little bit of that brown color and do, or any color actually, maybe a darker green would be prettier for the stems, or one of these other colors. Yeah, let's use one of these other colors that we already have going and put a little bit of that maybe for the stems. I'm not really sure. I'll try a little bit of that brownish color. Maybe make the brown a little bit more on the red side. I just don't want to have it stand out like a sore thumb. So just add a few little stems. I don't even know if the stems are 100% necessary, but something like that. And tap a little water here because I can see it's drying funny. I'm going to try putting a little bit more green here, and maybe even a little bit more water. We'll see here, a little more paint. I think I could still be a little bit darker. Let's just try adding a little bit of water to my brush, just giving it a glaze. And then I'll just drop a tiny bit of that darker green in here in a few spots. I don't know. Probably getting a little bit picky now, but just tap a little bit of the color kind of around it just to help it kind of blend into the background a bit so it doesn't stand out as much. Oh, cool, maybe something like that. Yeah, I think that's okay. Okay, so now it's dry, so I'll just add that vein back on there, just a little bit. I think it needs a little something, but at least it's not quite as light. All right, so now for the lettering, I want a really, really dark color. So what I'm thinking I'll do is I'll take this dark color that I used for my shadow. Actually, let's do it over here, just in case we decide we want our shadow color for anything. So just move the water over here, and I'm just gonna pull together a number of my darker colors so that I get a black. So we'll see what we get with this. I can see I'm kind of on the purple side still. So I'll take some of the yellow. Just going to pull us a little closer to the black, and maybe some of this bluish color here. I'm just going to kind of keep pulling some of the different colors into here until I feel like I've got a good color. Pretty much everything on my palettes are made with the 3 primaries. My hands say yellow deep, quinacridone rose, and phthalo blue. Occasionally I use ultramarine blue or quinacridone magenta, but for the most part, these mixtures will just be made with my primaries. So you could choose to either use a black or kind of a blue-gray color, or just mix something up on your own palette and see what you can get. I like that. I think that's a fairly balanced black. And if I want to, I can always add a little bit of this bluish color in if I feel like I want a little bit more harmony. So now I'm going to go ahead and transfer the words on here. Emmanuel, God with us. And so I'm going to just lay this down, make sure everything is lined up. The edge of this is lined up with my painting, and then I'll tape things and then I will trace it. And you can definitely do whatever message you'd like on yours. And I'm going to go ahead and use my number 3 for doing the lettering. I'm just going to cover this with some paper towel just to kind of protect it, keep my hand from smearing things around. And you can use your, if you're going to follow along with me, you can definitely use this as a guide to see where you need to go thick or thin. The downstrokes are thick and the horizontal or the upstrokes are thinner. You'll see me do that as I do my lettering. But you can also just do the whole thing with the same width of stroke everywhere. Definitely take your time as you do this and get yourself in a comfortable position. I'm not as crazy about my E. It's not terrible, but I would have liked it to have been a little more smooth. As I come down on the E, you can see I'm taking a wider stroke. And then I'm going to dip into a little bit of this purpley kind of blue color from our shadows. And you can see I'm letting the paint kind of run out as I go. I like the watercolor look where some of the letters are a little lighter, some are a little darker, but you can definitely keep it more consistent if you want. Just keep dipping into your paint. I love the name Emmanuel for Jesus. It reminds me of who he truly is and always has been, the eternal God who came to earth to dwell among us. This name for Jesus was prophesied many years before his birth in the book of Isaiah, and then spoken again when the angel announced his coming in Matthew 1:23. The fact that God became a man brings me so much comfort because it means he knows what it's like to walk this earth. He understands human emotion, our joy, our pain, and our sorrow. Even more, he came to take on the sin of all mankind when he died for us. He became sin for us so that he could give us his righteousness before God. When he rose again, he promised eternal life to anyone who puts their trust in him. My hope and prayer is that you will know the hope, comfort, and joy that is found in Jesus, Emmanuel, God with us, this Christmas season. Have a wonderful Christmas celebration and a happy new year. I look forward to creating art with you in 2026. And until then, I hope this tutorial has brought a little taste of God's beauty and peace into your everyday life, and that it's inspired you to continue enjoying your own creative journey. See you again soon. Bye!